Formula One has revealed some concept images of what we could expect from the 2021 rules overhaul that we're going to get. Now, this kind of came about through mistake in that Ross Brawn was giving a tech talk, I think, to some students, and he showed an image on the screen briefly, and in his own words, then saw a load of phones come out. So at that point, I think F1 realised they had a problem. That picture was probably going to get out. It did on social media. So there was a presentation at the Singapore Grand Prix, and we saw 3 different kind of futuristic concepts that could be the direction F1's going to head in. Now, I'm here to talk about those with Scott Mitchell and Alex Kalinauckas. Guys, first impressions, just from the visuals, what did you think?
I was more positive about it than the Ferrari engineers apparently were when they called it underwhelming and looked like an old champ car. I
was surprised that old champ car is a negative phrase.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I thought it was quite cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks different. I mean, the bit that I don't like is that they seem to have fallen for this weird style cue of if you sort of skew an image and just sort of change the angle by like 15-20 degrees and you just lean it that way, it looks really cool and really fast. They seem to have gone down that route a little bit. But I like the fact that they've thought of something different. I mean, you've gone with the usual sort of flicks and swoops, swooshes and stuff like that, and it's all, I guess it looks more aggressive and looks faster, and it's nice that F1 has sort of put a little bit of effort into that, because we saw when Formula E, as Alex well knows, introduced their second gen car, like you get a massive outpouring of support when you go aggressive and go against the grain. So it's nice that they've tried something like that.
Well, this is the thing, Alex, as our Formula E correspondent, you've seen Formula E just go through this. We're going to have the new Gen 2 car racing soon. Bearing in mind what you've seen from Formula E and the reaction, and we've seen that car in the flesh testing, what did you make of the F1 images? Are they just sort of copying what we've seen already, or is it good to see that they're going in their own direction?
Well, 2 things struck me. One, the oval setting, which was a bit bizarre for those first images, because Formula 1 cars, as we know, don't race on ovals.
I'm going the wrong way on an oval as well.
Exactly.
Maybe it's a hint of what the 2021 calendar will be like.
Just getting Daytona or something, just some random, So what I liked about that was there's one particular concept, I think it's the 3rd one, where it's got silver and for some really random reason the old F1 logo. It looks quite a lot like the Gen 2 car, and it did make me think, is this F1 sort of hitting back? Did they see the positive feedback that Formula E received for going that way? But it also made me wonder, and I'll be honest, I don't have the answer to that question at the moment. Did the FIA have a hand in this? Because as we know, it was Jean Todt who picked out the Gen 2 design. They had 2 choices. Alejandro Agag, FE CEO, wanted something else. Todd said, no, we're going this way. And that's the way they went. So I wonder whether that was sort of recommended to F1 that they go down that route.
I think I might be able to help answer one of those questions, because these concepts were done over a year ago. And that's why it's got the old logo on it, the old F1 logo, because these concepts were unlit. I'm pretty sure they were never meant to see the light of day.
Well, work started over a year ago. I think it's been ongoing.
So I don't think these, as you sort of suggested, I don't think these pictures were ever meant to see the light of day. I think they were supposed to be sort of
certainly not now.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a bit older. So I don't know. I think that maybe suggests that they weren't necessarily taking style cues from Formula E. But it's clear that they're sort of trying to go in that direction. So we've now got a really aggressive Formula E design, some really cool Formula 1 concepts. IndyCar sort of has massively changed its look and is always like looking at sort of quite different, again going against the grain of what's been traditional for the last 10-15 years. So as I sort of said at the beginning, it's really good to see F1 going that way, because all of the talk about making the cars easier to follow and try and make the racing good, you also do need to have something basically sexy that appeals. You need to have people looking at these cars and go, wow, these are cool, these are the best racing cars around. And while I love the halo for all of the safety reasons, and I think it's absolutely right, finding a way to incorporate the halo into the design is important, and I think these concepts do go a little bit further with that. It makes the cars look better, so that aesthetic thing is sort of back after taking a bit of a hit this year.
And one of the things Brawn mentioned actually was that he sees racing cars in computer games, and I assume he's not talking about the official F1 game, because those cars look exactly like the cars we have at the moment. But he said that computer game cars shouldn't look better than Formula 1 cars. You've talked a lot about the aesthetics there, Scott. Alex, is there a risk that if we focus too much on the aesthetics, that the real details, which we'll come to next, could be forgotten, or could the balance be wrong? I don't want to see F1 go style over substance. What do you think?
Well, they still need to be quick, and that's where the teams are going to come in. So what I found, what I first thought when I saw these, I was like, finally, we've got something that looks really, really, really nice. And that is undoubtedly absolutely really, really important because, as we know, it's the whole entertainment versus sort of business side of things. So I think it is key that they look really, really good. But where the teams come in is that they're always going to want to make the cars as fast as possible. So what Formula One needs to really do now is focus on the wording of the regulations, because what we've seen so far is 3 interpretations. Well, the teams could come up with 10 more different interpretations, which might not necessarily look sort of as nice as the ones we've seen now. But they're obviously still going to try and make things as fast as possible. So I think we'll still maintain, the key elements of Formula One, which is that it's as fast as it possibly can be.
My concern is that we already have the teams downplaying the concepts and saying, "Don't worry, the 2021
it's not going to look
cars."
like that.
Yeah, exactly, because they know that it's that sort of reality versus sort of that hope versus expectation, rather. So you hope that the cars can look this aggressive while retain all of the slashing, the effect of being in dirty air and stuff like that, and make better racing, make the cars this, that and the other. And then the reality of going, well, actually, once you start doing this, this is going to have this effect, and this is going to affect the air downstream because of this, and then that's going to do that. It's so complicated. And what F1 will hope is that it's got an ace up its sleeve that it hasn't had in the past, which is this central, independently funded R&D push to improve overtaking. Because you had the overtaking working group in the past, but that was something that the teams all pitched in for, and it was all done, and it wasn't like, I don't want to say that they sort of, it was a bit of a bodge job, but they were like, okay, we're doing this as well as being Formula One teams competing in F1. Whereas
There's
now,
too much self-interest
yeah,
in those
exactly.
situations.
And now you have something that is like, it has one focus, and that's to improve it. And that's what Paddy Lowe was talking about. Obviously, he was massively involved in the OWG originally. He's super experienced, and he's quite optimistic that this is I guess it's a weapon that F1 didn't have in that overtaking fight before. So maybe you align that with this willingness to be bold and striking in the design, and maybe F1 fans will get the cars and the F1 that they really want in 2021. Maybe it's not just a pipe dream.
Yeah, because the key is, if the cars look great but the racing's terrible, then it hasn't worked. So let's get into that detail. Having a look at the concepts, they all clearly follow some key strands, such as simplified aero, particularly the wings. The front wings got much smaller end plates, fewer elements, a lot less top surface aero, and that means that a lot more of the downforce is going to be generated from underneath the car. The result of that should be, and Braun's numbers so far, he's telling people that what is currently a 50% loss of downforce when you get close to the car you're chasing, they reckon they can get that to a 20% loss. Now that's a significant difference. Are these the real details that we should be worried about over the next few months as these concepts come out, rather than, as you say, Scott, the kind of swooshy designs and that sort of thing?
Absolutely, because I think one of the key areas is that to make sure that things work in isolation. So if the front wings are simple, the same with the rear wings and other elements, that's great. It means the cars will be able to follow each other. What we don't want is what we've got now, where the cars look great, but all the little intricate and extremely expensive aerodynamic pieces actually make it really, really difficult to follow. So if F1 can keep those out, then they've got something they can work with. And you raise the point of the underfloor aero being really, really important, because that's what Formula 2 has got. And as we always see, that's the best racing on the F1 support bill at each race. And
also the underfloor aero is what Formula E's gone for with the Gen 2 car.
And IndyCar, the new IndyCar.
Exactly.
As well.
So it's all going. It's almost like racing championships have finally realised if you put a load of wing-dependent aero on these cars, they're going to be really quick through the corners, throw out a load of dirty air, and the racing's going to suck a little bit. So it's like everyone's finally waking up, and it's good that the F1's noticing that as well. The main thing for me is something that Alex sort of raised very early in this discussion, which is that the teams will find loopholes, they'll find elements, because there's such a massive change, because there's so much sort of variation in the concepts, that you'll be able to find something. Like
Ross Brawn was the expert of this. That's the hilarious thing, is that he's on the other side of the fence, and he is acutely aware that he can't write a set of regulations that allows someone to do what his team did in 2009 and come up with something like a double diffuser that completely changes the game.
He is the ultimate cliche poacher turned gamekeeper, isn't he? Like I've lost count of the number of times he's been referred to as that in his new role. It's so important, as Alex said, that they get those regulations right, because if they leave anything open, then you run the risk of someone finding a double diffuser or something. And if we have a situation when this big brave new world of F1 rolls out in 2021 or 22, if it's delayed, whatever, and one team steals a march or two or three teams steal a march, and we have this Class A, Class B split continue, and then F1 loses all credibility for that revolution, and it loses a load of momentum.
And the problem with the loopholes is that the bigger teams, because by virtue of being that, having more money and more resources, they have more people and more time available to find those loopholes.
And when you've got the resources going on at the moment where you have talk about resource restrictions, budget caps, staffing headcounts being limited, we've already got this massive fear of servant teams cropping up where big teams will be able to buddy up with small teams and focus on different areas of the car. So it doesn't really matter if you try and say, okay, you've got $150 million or $250 million to spend on this, because if you're then actually focusing your budget on one part of the car and one of your helper teams is focusing on another, all of a sudden you find 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times the number of loopholes you can find in that set of regulations. So they've got to get it spot on, because this overhaul is not just about the concept cars, it's not just about what they look like, it's about all of the other things in the sport, technical alliances, resources, that sort of thing. It all needs to come together. There are so many details for them to thrash out, because if they get one element wrong, then it will basically undermine what they're trying to achieve with the concept cars.
I'd also say there's a sort of credibility element to this as well, because we've been here before, 2009, where they got rid of all the aero, those really ugly front wings came on, and it was like, oh, it's going to be great overtaking, and it just wasn't. And then we had the next few years where the regulations were such that they produced some of the ugliest Formula One cars in history. So, and then 2017 came along, and they're great looking cars, but again, the racing still isn't wonderful. So it's got to get to a point where they're going to have revolution after revolution, nothing's going to change, and they're just going to keep losing out.